Hello ladies, and thank you for joining me today. It's great to have a wee catch up. I was hoping to speak to you today about just PRRT, your experience. It's something that's going to be open to me, so I would be really keen to catch up with you and get your insight. So before we start, I'll do the introduction. I am Ashley Black. I have neuroendocrine cancer. I have 4 tumours with an unknown primary.
Hello, I'm Sally Jenkins. I've been diagnosed with neuroendocrine cancer for nearly 13 years. My primary was in the small bowel. I've had initial surgery and then a long period of time when I was completely stable, about 10 years. And then a couple of years ago, I started progressing a bit more, which is where PRRT came in.
Hi, I'm Kath Lewis, a neuroendocrine patient as well. I was diagnosed in 2015. My primary is also in my small bowel with metastases in my liver, some lymphs and on the peritoneal wall. Due to the siting of my tumours, I'm not a candidate for surgery. I'm classed as a watch and wait. So PRRT was the main option for me, and I had PRRT 2018, early 2019 due to progression in 2017.
So it's nice to see you. It's good to have a wee catch up. So I was hoping just to kind of get a wee bit more information. As I said, it's something that's open to me. My consultant said that. So it's just to really start off by saying, why did you get PRRT and what's your experience of what it is? Kath, are you okay to start?
Yeah. So as I said, due to the siting of my tumours, which are not easy to get to, PRRT was really my only option if there was progression. And in October 2017, I started feeling quite poorly again. And when I had my consult the following April, they decided to do another gallium scan to see if there'd been any progression, and there was, and so PRRT was started in July 2018. I had 4 treatments, 8 weeks apart, and my last one was in January 2018.
Sal, you?
Yeah, my story is slightly different. As I say, I had surgery when I was first diagnosed in 2009, and that removed the primary and quite a lot of my bowel as well, small and large intestines, leaving me with various difficulties, none of which were to do with progression. So as I say, I had about 10 years where I was completely stable. But then about 3 years ago, I did start to feel slightly unwell, but it was really the tests and the numbers that started stacking up, and that was the indication that there was some progression. I too have got metastases spread throughout my body cavity. And so the scans and the blood tests started showing that they were on the move again a bit. And so I was offered PRRT as an option. Again, like Kath, surgery is not an option now because there are a lot of small tumours scattered around the place. So it's a slow burn thing. It was first suggested, and it was some months later before I actually started the therapy. That's probably because my tumours are grade 1, so they're extremely slow growing anyway. So there was plenty of time to think about it. I didn't have to rush to a decision. And I had the first session in the summer last year, that's 2020. And I finished the 4th session at the beginning of this year, which is February 2021. So my therapy was similar to Kath's in that way. It took less than a year or all in to actually complete all the 4 sessions.
I think it's amazing as well. It's been 10 years, is that right, Sally? You were saying
Yes.
you're on your treatment. I think that gives me a lot of confidence as well, because
Yes.
I'm just 2 years diagnosed, and you just, you worry and you don't know what's going to happen and what's open to you. So that gives me a lot of confidence that you've been on a treatment plan for 10 years.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I was on octreotide injections, monthly octreotide, and I had management drugs to manage the effects of the tumours, but I didn't need any other therapy at all. I just trotted along every 6 months and had a scan and blood tests, and that was it for, as I say, about 10 years.
Yeah, that's amazing, because that I was on octreotide and I've moved to lanreotide recently, so that's positive to hear. Were you the same, Kath? Were you on octreotide as well?
I was on lanreotide. I went straight on to that when I was diagnosed. I was on it every 4 weeks. I'm now on it every 3 weeks. That was changed earlier this year, just because of symptom control. But since I've had the PRRT, everything has remained stable, which is, I mean, we're coming into the third year now. I do suffer with a lot of abdominal pain, which I have to take separate pain relief for. But the PRRT was not to manage the pain for me. It was to stop or slow down progression, which it's done.
What is your PRRT? What was your treatment plan, Kath?
So I had PRRT. It was every 8 weeks for me. The first treatment, I was in for 2 nights. I went in the night before, and I stayed in the night after. But that was the same for the second treatment. The third treatment, I went in just as a day patient. That was more of a guinea pig, as things were starting to get quite busy, because it was back on the NICE register just after I started mine. But I was quite poorly after my third one. So when I had my fourth one, I went in on the morning of my PRRT, but I stopped overnight and went home the next day. But the protocol for each hospital can be different.
What
and
about
I was treated at Christie in Manchester.
Oh, sorry, Kath. What about yourself, Sal? Were you pretty much the same as well?
Somewhat similar, except that mine was a bit more recent, and I hit the COVID crisis. So I had mine done in the Royal Free in London, and before COVID, the routine was to go in one afternoon, have the treatment the following day, and then go home the day after that. So it was actually 2 nights in hospital. But I hit the COVID crisis, so I was treated as a day case. So I arrived at the hospital at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I went home in the evening at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I have about a 3 or 4 hour drive because I live in South Wales. So it meant a very early start, but it did mean that I was home in the same day. That was for the first 3 treatments, and I was allowed home because I felt okay after each one of the 3. But on the 4th one, I felt quite unwell. I felt nauseous, and generally, it's a bit difficult to put your finger on it. I felt unwell all over, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so they said, oh, we'd like to keep an eye on you overnight just to make sure you're okay, rather than, you know, decanting you into a car now and having a journey. So it was more of a precaution than anything else, I think. And so I had a good night's sleep. And when I woke up the following morning, I was fine and I went home. So, yeah. And I think it, as Kath said, every hospital has a slightly different schedule. But there are core similarities, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah. So is there 4 in total? Is that right?
Yes, 4 treatments. Yeah.
So this is the big question. This is the one I like. I'm quite a visual person, so I like to know what I'm walking into and what my day is going to look like. And I kind of wish with everything that I've already been through, that somebody would be able to walk me through it. So I was kind of wondering if you'd be able to tell me, Sal, what your treatment day looks like from start to finish, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. It's actually quite relaxed, surprisingly. I didn't really know what to expect, and I did have visions of, because it's nuclear medicine, I had visions of people in these radiation suits looking like automatons, and I'd be treated in a little box out away from everybody else, and it's actually nothing like that at all. So I would arrive at 8 o'clock in the morning on the ground floor of the Royal Free, and taken to have the needles put into my arms, one in each arm. On one arm, there's a line for the actual nuclear medicine stuff. And then in the other arm, there's another line that feeds a drip to protect the kidneys, because apparently the radioactive isotopes are gathered up by the kidneys and excreted, so they need protecting. So I was just in an ordinary little treatment room, and there's a technician who was very good at sliding a needle into a vein and sticking it down. They really know what they're doing, didn't feel anything. And so I came away from that with Venflon, I think they call them, in each arm. And then I had to go up to the top floor of the Royal Free, which has got a magnificent view out over the city, and it's very green and rather pretty. And you are effectively in a lead-lined box, but it's a large one, and it looks like being in a room with an ensuite facility with a normal hospital bed. So I went up to there. I think in some places patients sit in a big comfy chair to be treated. I actually had the bed, which was nice and comfy. I could get, very comfy in there, and it had its own little loo as well. And so the first drip that was started before the treatment was the one to protect the kidneys. So a normal drip was put up with a drip bag. If anybody's ever had surgery, they'll know what I'm talking about, on a little wheelie trolley, a drip stand, and you can wheel that in and out of your little loo. So it's quite relaxed. And I sat there for a while having that, chatting to people. You have to fill in forms and they tell you stuff and all the rest of it. Then after about, I think it was about 40 minutes or an hour of the drip, then the nuclear bit starts. There were 3 people who were administering it to me. I think one was a consultant, one was a technician, and then there was another registrar. And again, very relaxed and chatty, and they just attach another drip to your arm, and it takes about 40 minutes, and there is this radioactive fluid fed in through the Venflon. And it's very little different to having any other sort of drip put up, but they do monitor it very carefully because it's radioactive, just to make sure that it goes in properly. Then when that was done, I was left with the other drip carrying on, because that carries on again to protect the kidneys for about another hour or so, just to wait for the drip bag to empty. So by that time I was radioactive, so I was sitting in the room. People didn't come into the room then. There was a barrier, like a half barrier, put across the door. So when I was fed, I would push the wheelie trolley that you have across the bed in hospitals. I'd push that out towards the door. They'd put the food on it, and then I'd pull it back, so that I didn't really come within arm's length of anyone. But they were able to chat, and I was able to have my tablet and books, and you can take whatever you want, the phone. So I was chatting with people at home, that sort of thing. And then when the second drip had finished, then they wait for it to distribute itself around your body. and then scan to make sure that all the radioactivity has ended up where it's meant to be, i.e. in the tumours. And the scan was downstairs, so I was taken down and in a wheelchair, and I didn't have to walk, by a porter, and given this scan. And then taken back up to the room, and then it was just a little bit of discharge administration, with some anti-sick pills, that sort of thing. And as I say, for the first 3, I was able to go home that same day. And I mean, to be honest, really, the worst bit of it was the journey back on one of the trips up there, when there was a hold up on the on the North Circular, and we were just stuck in traffic for hours, it seemed like. Apart from that, the day had been relatively relaxing until that. The 4th one, I did start to feel quite unwell, and that's when they kept me in. So I just stayed in. They did warn me that, I wouldn't necessarily be able to go home. So I had a toothbrush and a nightie with me, and that was all really. And then I just stayed the night then, and then went home in the morning.
Sounds like a long day, doesn't it?
It was a long day. Yes, it was a very long day, because to get there on time, you leave pretty early. So I was getting up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and on the long day, I didn't get back till about 11 o'clock at night, and that was a very long day. Yeah. But it did mean that I didn't have to have the overnight stay, and with COVID around, I was quite prepared to do that, and I slept in my own bed, so that was quite comfy. Yeah. Mm.
What about yourself, Kath? Was that pretty much the same as you as well?
Yeah, sort of, yes. Like I said, I mean, for my first 2, I went in the night before, and also each treatment was done just before my next lanreotide injection was due. So I had to take my injection in with me to have the day after. I had 3 cannulas, but they've changed that now. I think it's down to 2 as well at the Christie. But I also had a problem with, I've got very small veins and they're quite fragile. So it was, I was advised to be well hydrated so as they could get all the cannulas in. But in the morning, they also gave me an anti-nausea injection before the treatment. Yeah, pretty much the same as Sal. You once your cannulas are in, you go down. We went down to the room, and all the you connected up. Had a very nice team looking after me. My radiation was also measured as well after the treatment had finished, the PRRT radiation treatment itself. Before I went for my scan, they measured the levels of radiation within my body. Then when I came back from the scan, I was told I needed to go to the loo. So I did, which is fun when you've got all these drips on wheels, especially because the toilets aren't that big neither. So it's a bit of a dance getting in there. Then they took my radiation readings again. And then pretty much in the afternoon, you're left to it, get a bit of lunch. It's like Sally said, it's very relaxed. And then I was back up on the ward about 4 o'clock, and they, just before I went back up, they measured my radiation again. And then I went back up to my room. Next morning, after the first one, though, I did feel a bit like I'd been hit by a bus. Everything ached. It was so difficult getting up that morning. Then that morning I went down for another scan. I had, and then I was able to go home, and they also measured my radiation then. And I had to go back for 3 more scans which had about 2 to 3 days between each one, because they were checking how quickly the radiation leaves the body. But what you've got to remember is this was in 2018, 2019, yeah. So things have changed a bit since then, I think. Also, after the first treatment, my husband bought a Geiger counter because he's good and he's interested in all that sort of stuff. So we measured my radiation level 3 times a day during the time that I was in isolation, and we shared these with the Christie, which I think they've just used as part of their research to see how quickly it left the body over that 2 weeks. After my final scan, after the treatment, I was given a card which told me how long I needed to be isolated from other people, and also at what stage I could mix with people depending on age and health and that type of thing. But overall it worked out. I was in isolation for about 2 weeks after each treatment, and each treatment, the aftercare was exactly the same.
So see, you were saying you get measured your radiation. Was that through one of those machines at the Christie Hospital, or was it a CT, or how did they do that?
They have their own radiation monitors that they use, which is it is a Geiger counter. Right. It's a Geiger counter, and what they're doing is measuring how quickly the radiation leaves your body, which then helps them to calculate how long you need to be in isolation. That's how I understand it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have to have that done. They just told me that I'd need to isolate at quite a distance for a week, and then at a lesser distance for another week. And I think they'd probably had enough patients before me who they'd all measured, that they knew that by that time, I was safe to be let out.
Kath, you were saying about the lanreotide. Why did you have to inject that at a similar time to your treatment?
It's your treatment, I think, is in it. The lanreotide that you have as your part of your monthly treatment needs to be out of your body before you have your PRRT.
Right.
As far as I understand it. And then you have it afterwards. That was for 4 weekly. I don't know how it works for 3 weekly.
But that makes sense, so doesn't it? I suppose that it's right out your system before you start that.
It was the same with mine with octreotide. Except that I waited for a week after the end of treatment before I had my next octreotide injection.
Right. Just depends then, I suppose, doesn't it?
I think it's to do with, I think it's to do with, it's slightly different protocols in different places, but it's also to do with the individual. Because as with much in neuroendocrine cancer, what suits one individual doesn't exactly suit another. We're all slightly different.
All very unique. See, in terms of rules and stuff, like see if you've got radiation in your body, I know you've kind of touched on this, but what is the rules for when you come home? What do you need to do? Is there anything you need to do, Sal?
If possible, you need to sleep in a separate bedroom. And also, if possible, have your own toilet. Whenever you go to the toilet, you need to flush it twice. And you need to, I think it was, you need to keep it was it a minimum distance of 6 feet apart? And also, like your laundry, that was done separately as well, or just due to the radiation, I believe. I don't know if any of that has changed since then. I think Sal might be better able to answer that one.
Yeah, mine was similar. And as I say, I while I was having my treatments, it was during COVID, and I was isolating then anyway. And being a vulnerable person, I didn't particularly want to go out and mix, but I was told that I needed to isolate for a week afterwards, and to the extent that I stayed in my room, people put food on a tray outside the door and retreated to the end of the corridor. They probably could have come closer, but they didn't, because I was told to stay away from children and pregnant women. And so, you know, we didn't take any risks. To be honest, I didn't feel like doing anything very much because I did feel tired. I mean, that was the one big consequence. I was exhausted, and the tiredness built over the 4 treatments. It got worse and worse, and it wasn't a painful tiredness. I was just really exhausted and wanted to sleep all the time. And sometimes I'd sleep for 10 hours, wake up and have something to eat and drink, and I'd go back to sleep again. The same thing, they advised, if you have a separate loo or bathroom, use that, because the radioactivity, as I said, is excreted through the kidneys, so it comes out in urine. I did ask about this, and I said, are my sheets going to be radioactive? And they said, well, not really, because it's not excreted through perspiration. So really, it's the loo. That's why the double flush, and use, if you can, use a separate facility. We didn't happen to have one, so I just used to go and give the place a scrub round, and I would sort of shout before I left my little room to go down to the bathroom so that everybody kept out of the way. That lasted for a week. The second week, I can't remember the exact details of how close you can get to people, but again, I didn't get very close to them, just to be on the safe side. And that included the pets as well. So I kept out the way of the dogs and the cats.
That must have been really difficult. Like, I actually think that must be so hard to just not get close to the people like in your family and stuff. But I know it's for a good reason, but it must have been really hard for you.
Yeah.
The dog wasn't impressed at all.
The husband didn't care, but the dog was worried, was it?
Yeah. He'd get a couple of minutes on the bed in the morning, and then he'd have to be dragged off.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the thought of my food being delivered on a tray to the door, that would be really nice for that to happen, but everything else sounds really difficult and quite challenging.
Yeah, that didn't happen in this house.
No. I found it a bit odd, but I think one of the things was I was so tired that I didn't actually want to socialize anyway.
Yeah.
If I'd been feeling full of life and everything, I might have found it quite irksome.
Yeah.
But I'd been feeling quite tired beforehand as well. So it wasn't that I'd given up a completely active life and I'd been at work, because I'm retired anyway, and I'd been at work and all of a sudden I had to stop and stay in a room. So there wasn't so much of a change for me. And I think being in COVID, because we'd all been isolating anyway, it was less of a difficulty for me personally. But again, it's going to be different for everybody. But you do need to isolate to keep other people safe.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And of course, they're going to be the people that you care about.
Yeah, and it's just so hard, like the fatigue. Why is everything fatigue with us? It drives me insane. Like the cancer gives you fatigue, and the treatments give you fatigue. Everything is fatigue.
Yeah.
One of the things I found hard with the fatigue was what I call the light switch moment. I mean, I've always had times when my energy just goes anyway.
Yeah.
But during PRRT, it was a lot more unpredictable.
Oh.
I mean, it did get better again afterwards, but it was literally, you'd be going along quite nicely, and then boom, I was down.
Yeah.
And I was fit, absolutely fit for nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
And I think you have to accept that. And when you get that, I found it's no point trying to push through it.
No,
you don't think,
it just makes it
oh
worse.
yes, I'll have a cup of tea and then I'll get back to what I'm doing. No, if your body's telling you that it's really battered because it's had all this radioactive stuff shoved into it, and you've got cancer cells running around your body, and it's tired. Okay, say, yeah, I'm going to lie down and I'm going to sleep as long as I need. Yeah. And then I'll have my cup of tea and my food. And if I need to sleep again, then I will do that. And if people around you understand that, then they can organize themselves so that they're not expecting you to do anything, you know, if they've had that advance warning. But the one good thing about the fatigue is that now, and where we were at the end of the year, my therapy finished at the beginning of the year, I now gradually, I have got my energy back, and I feel a lot better now than I did before I started the therapy. The energy has come back very much better.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's good news.
But again, it's one of those things. I mean, I felt so much better afterwards, and I still do, but you can't, it's very difficult to put it into words how you feel better. You just know that you do feel better in yourself.
Yeah.
And I'd say most of it, a lot of it, is especially here in my head. I'm coping with things a lot better.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a bit more energy.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that it's keeping everything more or less stable is why I'm feeling better.
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's very cheering psychologically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to know that it's all gone back to being stable.
Yeah. I got my enthusiasm back.
Yeah.
I was, because before I had my PRRT, I was just miserable, really miserable, because we got to the stage where, you know, having to cancel things again and at short notice, and you know, it was just miserable. That's for me anyway. That was how it was.
No, I think we can definitely relate on that. Absolutely, it gets very frustrating, and I know what you mean. Mentally, it can weigh you down. So having been stable and feeling a wee bit more energy will make you feel amazing, which is great.
Yeah, because you got to a level of acceptance, and then the rug got pulled again.
Yeah, it's taken me a while to get to that, though. It's not instant.
No.
One of the consultants used the phrase slow burn several times when he was talking about PRRT. And yes, you know, it's not an instant therapy. It's something that you take a while to decide about it. It takes a while to do, and then it takes a while to recover, because immediately afterwards, I lost my appetite in a way that I have never done before. Because I've always been a bit of a pig as far as food is concerned. I love it. I love my food, and I've always enjoyed it. But I would look at, well, I could eat breakfast cereal and fruit, and I couldn't look at anything else, anything that had a stronger flavour, or, you know, all my favourite foods, I really didn't want them anymore. But that gradually got better. And they said that it would. You know, you just have to have patience, and it's taken a few months, but it is back to where it was before and better. Yeah.
I mean, I'd after each treatment, for a few weeks, I had a metallic taste in my mouth, which completely puts you off food. And it reminded me of when I was pregnant. Each time I had this horrible metallic taste in your mouth. So I don't know if it's a hormonal thing.
Could be.
But I believe it's from speaking to other people, it's that's quite common.
Yeah, I found my sense of, I didn't have a metallic taste, but I did find that my sense of taste changed. Foods tasted different and not nearly so appealing.
Yeah. It was very, I only wanted very plain food, which isn't like me at all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point though, Sal, like saying about a slow burner, because my expectations sometimes with treatment is way too high. I expect it to be very instant, and I need to remind myself of this all the time. So that's a real good one, actually. I know you've said, like, in terms of side effects of being fatigue and like the metallic taste and the food, is there anything else, side effects, that you had, Kath, during your treatment?
My hair thinned. I got quite worried about it at one stage. My nails were very thin, and also I lost some of my eyebrows, and I think I've said this in a previous video. One of the best things was, for me, anyway, Sal knows what I'm going to say.
I know it's going.
I don't have to shave under my arms anymore.
That is good news. That is definitely good news.
I don't know if that'll happen for anybody else, but my hair did come back quite quickly, I would say, after treatment had finished. I think my body probably realised that it didn't have to fight this thing anymore.
Yeah, I had similar effect. And my hair, I mean, it doesn't come out in handfuls or anything. It's not the classic chemotherapy type hair loss.
No.
But it does thin a bit. And my hair, I keep it short, but I was looking at it the other day and thought, yeah, it's just about now getting back to the way it was before I had PRRT. And so it's about 10 months down the line. And it's quite subtle. You know, you don't need the sort of support that chemotherapy patients need at all. It's just a matter of it. Maybe you need a bit of extra shampoo that gives it body type of thing, and maybe a slightly different cut or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's not dramatic in any way.
Yeah.
But you will notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of like after your treatment, like your guys' aftercare, is there anything that you kind of done yourself that helped in your recovery, like any wee things that you got or any things you did that really helped in your recovery and your 2 weeks isolation? So
for me, it was, I think it's acceptance. It's knowing, you know, you've got that fortnight, and don't try and circumvent it. Just, you know, read what the leaflet says, the advice that you're given, and go with the flow. You don't get any medals or brownie points for not doing that and pushing your way through. And although maybe you stay away from people to protect them, but you go out for 10-mile walks, or you get on your bicycle or do whatever. I mean, if you want to do that, that's fine. But if you don't, we'll just accept it and look on it almost as the holiday. It's a time when maybe you can read a load of books that you didn't read before, or you can, I couldn't focus, I couldn't concentrate, but then I was on quite heavy painkillers, which I've come off now anyway. You know, you can sort of, I don't know, listen to music. You can watch rubbish television for hours on end if you want to, and then doze off in front of it. You know, just go with the flow and do that. And don't put any pressure on yourself. Don't have expectations, and just take it as it comes, because you do come out of it at the other end. But I think Ashley used one word that I found quite relevant, was frustration. And you do get frustrated sometimes that you can't do things, and you think maybe you have to think, oh well, that comes with the territory, and it won't be like it in 6 months' time. So just accept and be sensible, and, you know, try and eat well. You know, you eat the rubbish, but, you know, try and get some good food down you, and maybe, take a little bit of exercise, go out for a little walk in the fresh air. Nothing too much. There's nothing dramatic. It's just being sensible, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. What about yourself, Kath?
Everything that Sal said. Listen to your body. It's really important that you listen to your body and let that lead you. Don't push yourself too hard. Try not to make too many plans, because if you know you're having PRRT, you know that more or less you're going to have a minimum of 6-month period where you're going to be under treatment, and it does take its toll. Also, we all react differently. Mine was a bit of a roller coaster ride. Each one was different. I'd say my third treatment was the worst as far as side effects went. It didn't help that it was over the Christmas period neither. Treatment was done in the November, and my body really fought quite hard against it. So I wasn't looking forward to my 4th treatment at all, which was at the beginning of January 2019. But that one was a breeze. But it's hard to say how we can tell you what we've experienced, but it's hard to say how you will feel, because I know some people will just breeze through it, but others won't. But it's all down to where your tumours are, I think, what your tumour load is, and down to how well you are at the time.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to listen with your body, and if you're worried about anything that's happening or you need help, ask for it.
Yeah. Is there anything you can do if you're sore? Like if you were in pain, did you just take pain relief, or did you do like hot water bottles, or did you have anything to kind of?
So yeah, pain relief, definitely. Hot water bottles, my best friend.
Yeah, I fully agree there. Yeah.
And if you've got a bath, a nice hot bath.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. I agree there. I mean, I wasn't in pain, but then I had quite severe pain beforehand. And they did say, look, PRRT may improve it or it may not. It's not a guarantee. So I thought, oh, well, go with the flow again. And I was on quite heavy duty painkillers for that. But as it happens, I'm stepping them down quite, noticeably. And so at the time, I could have been in pain, but I was on pain relief anyway. So I wasn't. I was quite comfortable. But it seems to, for me, it seems to have relieved the abdominal pain. But again, that's personal. It might not work. It's not one of the things that's guaranteed in any way.
Yeah. No. I think you're both looking absolutely amazing. You look great. So where are you now in your journey? How are you both feeling now?
Well, I must say, I feel great.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I take slow relief morphine every day for my stomach pain, but as long as I can keep that under control, I'm good. I'm good, yeah. I mean, I do get good days and bad days, but we all do. And then, the fatigue, I don't think the fatigue ever goes away, ever.
No.
It's just that when you're having PRRT, it can be a lot worse.
What about yourself, Sal?
Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah, I echo what Kath says. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything to add. She said it.
Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your stories. I really appreciate it. You've given me a real insight into PRRT, the process, what the day looks like. Just that gives me a lot more confidence if that's something that I'm going to be open to. So thank you very much for sharing your story. I will no doubt be contacting you if I need any help.
Welcome anytime.
Thank you again. And ladies, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Sally. Lovely
Bye.
to see you both.
Bye.